Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the government and political host, and it's election season. So today our guest is Congressman Tom Tiffany. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Yumi, it's good to join you again.
So I think Congressman, I don't know, last time I saw you, I think it was at an event in, I don't know, it was for some charity, and then before that, it was at our school in Hudson. We took that tour. We appreciated having you. So I guess let's tell folks first. You are the 7th district congressman from Wisconsin, and the 7th district has changed a little bit since the last time you ran. Is that right?
That's right. So this is the 7th congressional. I've been here a little over 4 years, elected in a special election in May of 2020. And I live up near Minocqua, Wisconsin, up in the beautiful Northwoods, and have the great privilege to represent people here in the 7th congressional. My wife, me and my wife, Chris, have our home up near Minocqua, and we have 3 adult daughters.
And, obviously this show has its greatest coverage in Western Wisconsin, but you do have some ties to Western Wisconsin, don't you?
On a dairy farm in Elmwood, Wisconsin, 5 brothers, 2 sisters, most of them still living in Western Wisconsin. Went to college at UW River Falls, got an agricultural degree there, put that to use for a while. So very familiar with Western Wisconsin. Whenever I'm back, it's like home.
Yeah. And prior to running in that special election, you had been in the Wisconsin legislature. Is that right?
That's right. My wife and I had a dinner and excursion boat for 20 years up in the Minocqua area. And then I ran for public office in 2010, went into the state legislature for nearly 10 years before going to Congress.
All right. So in Congress, you've been in there more than 4 years, 3 elections, the special election, and then 2 November general elections. This is now would be technically your 3rd full term. Or
That's correct.
Okay. And so let's just talk a little bit about your time in Congress. There would have been part of a year under President Trump, and then most of the rest has been with President Biden in the White House. And that was kind of split with Democratic. You've been in the minority in Congress, and you now currently been in the majority in the last 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct.
So what are you seeing? I mean, I guess, why do you want to continue to have this job, given that Congress has such great approval ratings of like 9%?
Yeah, we've not gotten the work done for the American people that we need to, but I do believe that the policy prescriptions that I have can get us back to a better America. Because if you look at over the last few years under the Biden-Harris administration, the deficit has went up significantly. We're no longer energy independent. We, of course, have seen over 10 million people come in illegally across the border. Every state's a border state now. And we've seen this weakness that leads to war with our foreign policy. And so I think it's quite easy to be able to turn these things around. It just takes the will politically to be able to make that happen. And so what are those Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was going to, when we were off camera, I mentioned that I'd looked at your website and you list about 8 to 10 areas, that you stand for. So if you don't mind, I mean, right off the top, we talk about the whole budget process and spending being out of control. You're clearly an advocate for less spending. So, and you mentioned about soaring deficits, but they were soaring before that too with, it's the idea of balancing a family budget is you got to watch your spending and try to increase your revenue. And so how do we do that on a federal level?
It's a very good question. I think it's the fundamental question before us. And by the way, it's the reason I ran for the state legislature back in 2010, because we had a $3 billion deficit. And I think that's unconscionable. Washington does not have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem, and we need to fix that. I support a balanced budget amendment. I would hope that we'd be able to get that done. You are correct that this has happened with both parties in control. Republicans and Democrats need to stop this spending spree. And it's part of the reason, like we have a vote as we speak here, Jamie. I'm going to cast a vote in regards to another continuing resolution. In other words, leaving our budget on autopilot. I am almost certainly going to vote against that bill as I voted against so many of these continuing resolutions because we cannot continue on autopilot. We need to do a responsible job of budgeting, just as we did in the legislature, where every 2 years we had to have a balanced budget. We need to do the same thing here in Washington, D.C. And there's a variety of ways in which we can accomplish that.
Okay, well, what would be specifics? Because I'm an advocate too for balanced budget and reducing spending, but the devil's always in the details. And I never hear either the congressman or candidates actually say what specific areas that they would cut.
Let me give you one real quickly. Under the heading of waste, fraud, and abuse, you look just across the border over in Minnesota. They have this huge scandal that's going on in regards to this hunger program that was going on during COVID. It sounds like there's upwards of $500 million that was put out fraudulently. Now, some of that was Minnesota taxpayer money, but a significant amount of it was federal money also as a result of federal dollars flowing in. That type of stuff has got to stop. We need to do a better job of reviewing those budgets and making sure that money does not go out fraudulently. Medicare is similar to that, where there's been estimates by think tanks as much as 20% of the money going out for this crucial program for seniors is being put out fraudulently. We need to cut the fraud and abuse out. That is one way in which we can accomplish balancing a budget.
And I can't agree with you more. So to be able to ferret out that fraud and abuse, it requires investigators and so forth. So would you support the spending to put that in place to try and spend a nickel to save $5?
Yeah, for sure. And for example, at the federal level, we have inspector generals that serve as basically auditors of the various agencies, and they bring concerns to us when they find them. We should empower the inspector generals to an even greater extent than they are now to be able to ferret out that fraud, waste, and abuse that is going on. It's,
Now,
as I said, remember, Jamie, money, there is more dollars coming into the federal government now than there was years ago. It is a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
okay, but with that, then when we get into specifics, and I'm going to just start with Social Security and Medicare. The problems that Social Security is facing is nothing new. We knew this was coming. The last time Social Security was fixed, it was done bipartisan between Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, and they raised the maximum retirement age, or the full retirement age, if you will, from 65 to now, for me, it's I think 67 and some change. But that they kept that initial eligibility age still at 62, and they said that more work would need to be done, and that was 40 years ago. Nothing more has been done, and now it's very clear that benefits are going to have to start to be reduced in about the year 2031, 32, which is when I expect to be collecting it. And so what are we going to do to preserve Social Security for those who have been paying in for 40 years like I have?
I think that promise of Social Security should continue to be there. I don't think we need to change it. The biggest threat to Social Security at this point is the creation of all these new programs. So in the previous Congress to this one, when we had the major spending blowout that went on with the American Recovery Plan, if you remember, there was a prominent Democrat economist that warned President Biden at the time, said, do not pass this bill. This is going to kick off inflation. Well, they did anyhow, and they created all these new programs, as well as others with the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. And also the infrastructure bill, over $1 trillion. I mean, you had trillions of dollars of spending, and we're finding out that so much of it is wasteful spending and creating new programs. We should not create new programs without strengthening the existing programs. And I think Social Security and Medicare should be first that we strengthen rather than creating new programs.
All right. But as far as specifically with Social Security, would you agree of uh, providing a fix for that and then making it a lockbox so that legislators are not dipping into it when there's a surplus? There hasn't been a surplus in that fund for a while now. It's been diminishing for years, but there was a point when we had more workers and less people retired, but the baby boomers are retiring now, and it has flipped. So would you advocate measures that would make Social Security basically like a lockbox and then not part of the federal budget itself?
So, and that's the way it was until, what was it, the late 1960s. I don't know if you know the detail, Jamie, but I think it was that way until the late 1960s. And then Congress, unfortunately, and President Johnson said, no, we're going to be able to use that money to balance the federal budget. And of course, it was Katie bar the door from there. I would be supportive of cordoning off Social Security to make sure that those benefits and that money is there strictly for Social Security.
All right. And then another area, because you say in your website that you're supportive of veterans. So how far does that go? Because again, that takes money, but these are people who have, fought for and defended our country. Have you been voting for and supporting things like housing and healthcare for our veterans who have served?
Yeah, there's a number of pieces of legislation that I voted for. There's been a few that I voted against because they explode the budget and do not accomplish the goal that they claim. But I've been very supportive of veterans issues, and all you have to do is talk to veterans around the district. We work tirelessly to make sure that veterans get the benefits that they deserve. For example, we've returned over $4 million here in 2024 to the people of the 7th Congressional District. Now, on a variety of issues. Now, that includes IRS issues and things like that, but it also includes veterans and getting them the benefits they deserve. We work tirelessly to make sure that they get the benefits that they have coming.
All right. Now, so we talked about the budget and veterans. How about moving on to, securing the border? That has been something very important. And do you think that this is going to be a uniparty solution where only one party needs to support it? Or do you think that there should be more bipartisan support for this whole issue of securing the border, but also securing immigration, legal immigration?
I wish it were bipartisan. Unfortunately, President Biden, and I can't say this any other way, he undid everything that President Trump did to secure the border. Our border was largely secure back in 2020. The first trip I made as a congressman was in June of 2020 to the Arizona border, where I heard from Sheriff Mark Daniels down in Cochise County of Arizona. When they were building the wall down there, he said, we are getting to a much better place. I talked to him a year later after President Biden came in, and he said, it is unleashed and it is an invasion here in America at this point. And it's part of where all the fentanyl is coming from. That is the number one killer of young people. I wish it were a bipartisan issue. Unfortunately, it's not. The Biden-Harris administration could turn this around tomorrow. They could do this tomorrow to secure the border. They have the authority to do it. They've chosen not to. But we also passed the best secure the border bill ever passed through a House of Congress over a year ago, H.R. 2. I helped write a portion of that bill that should be passed, put into law, and then we should have a system of legal immigration that works, because we do believe in legal immigration. But first, you have to secure the border.
All right. And then you have protecting the unborn. Of course, it's the abortion issue, and some are acting as if that's the only issue, but it's a very important issue for many. And what do you would propose at a federal level? Are you supportive of President Trump's position, which it should be up to the states, or do you want to see some type of federal ban across the board?
Believe that we can protect both the life and health of babies and of women. I believe that we can do both. I do support President Trump's position that this is a state issue and that the states should decide. For example, when I was in the legislature, this would have been about 7 or 8 years ago, I voted on a bill that bans abortion after 5 months. So it has a 5 month exception in it. And while that isn't perfect for everyone, I think it's kind of a middle ground. And I think that's what people are looking for at this point. I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. What I know is that out here in Washington, D.C., every Democrat in the last session of Congress voted for unlimited abortion up to 9 months. I just don't believe that's acceptable. Having abortions in the final trimester and having them legal, I just don't think that is appropriate. So I think
But
there's a
nobody is supporting, proposing that on a federal level, correct?
Yes, there was under the bill that was passed, when the Democrats were in the majority in the previous session of Congress in the House of Representatives, there was a majority that voted for a bill that would allow abortion all the way up to 9 months. And I know people want to be in denial about that, but that is what they voted for. And I don't think that's acceptable to the American public. I think they want to see more of a middle ground. And that's what I voted for when I was in the state legislature. The one thing I'd add in regards to this, Jamie, and I want to make this point. So they say they care for women and that this is a women's issue. But what about Title IX then? I have fought to defend Title IX, which has been in place for over 50 years. That's something that was so hard fought for by women across America and passed back in the early 1970s that gave women the equal access to be able to play, for example, interscholastic sports. I have 3 daughters, all participated. And I believe that Title IX should stay in place. The Biden-Harris administration is undermining Title IX, saying men can go in girls' locker rooms. They have proposed that. They've also, as a result of that, said that men can take girls' scholarships. I think that's unacceptable. And I think there's more to this issue in terms of calling it a women's issue than simply abortion. And I don't think women are just single issue voters in regards to that. I think issues like Title IX are important to them also.
All right. But just to be clear, as far as you talked about what you voted for 10 years ago when you were in the legislature, and then in a previous session of Congress, what the other party was proposing. But what would you propose if reelected on a federal level? Or would you not be in support of any federal overall that has to be applied to every state?
This issue should be decided by the states.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Now, on crime, you say that you want to be tough on crime. I haven't seen a candidate from either party say they want to be more relaxed on crime. But as examples, you cite back to the riots from 2020. But hopefully, those don't return. But I would share. I think that that's the most popular opinion, is that we need to have freedom of speech, but we also need to be reasonable about it. So which crimes are we talking about as far as you think that need control? Because murder, for example, since 2021 is down 17% across the country. So which crimes are it that you think are the problem that we need to focus on?
It's crime of all types, including violent crime. So you can cite since 2021. If you take the data from about the last 5 or 6 years, what President Trump said in the debate with Vice President Harris when he said crime is exploding across America, it is correct. Since his administration, crime is up significantly. It depends upon what you use for your baseline. And if you go back to the Trump administration, violent crime is up significantly. And we have people that'll say, oh yeah, we're opposed to violent crime, but they don't do anything about it. There's a sheriff's deputy that is dead in St. Croix County as a result of the soft on crime policies in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota. When you see Kamala Harris did as a district attorney in San Francisco, and what Tim Walz, her running mate, did as governor of Minnesota. They have taken two of the most beautiful cities in America, San Francisco and Minneapolis, and turned them into havens for crime. It is time for that to change. We need elected members of Congress, as well as the executive branch, that are going to be serious about fighting crime. People can count on me to be serious about fighting crime.
So what would you do on a federal level, though, about fighting crime, let's say in Wisconsin?
So I had a bill that said that prosecutors should prosecute, where we've seen prosecutors who have let people off with a slap on the hand. I mean, look at the Waukesha Christmas killer. Killed 6 people, drove through the Waukesha Christmas parade. He was off on $1,000 bail, and he had committed violent crimes previous to that. He had a long track record of committing crime, yet the easy on crime policies of the Milwaukee district attorney, and it's been well documented, let that person out. So that's something that we could do from the federal level. Otherwise, I believe it's primarily a state issue, but states need to make sure that they're using the federal money that we give to them to make sure that they are tough on crime.
Okay. And then finally, for schools, you say that you would be in favor of ending mask mandates and CRT. Are there any schools in your entire district that are using masks, are mandating masks or teaching CRT?
The mask mandates have been taken off by the schools. And if a school district, so this goes back a few years ago, and if it still appears there on my website, perhaps we should reevaluate our website. But at that time, it was proven that masks do not work. They do not stop the spread. And it's been shown that they do not work, and it's widely known at this point. In regards to CRT or DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff that has been foisted on some schools. I've heard from school board members that they've said in the district that they've said, we've seen this type of thing that has been going on in our schools, that's been proposed in our schools, and we should not be doing that. We have to get back to the fundamentals of education. Let's educate children rather than indoctrinating them.
Well,
Let's
I just
not
wondered
have
if you had the examples. I mean, which school boards? I mean, you haven't heard from us here in Hudson. There's no CRT in Hudson. So what districts have had that proposed?
goal. As you said at the top, I have had a chance to visit the Hudson School District. I've been impressed with your administration and your leadership team. I think you guys do a great job in Hudson. But there are a couple schools that have done this. I mean, the school board member I talked to that was concerned about it was in my home, where my kids went to school, the Lakeland Union School District. Now, I think they've been able to keep it out, but work to keep it out.
Well, but just a philosophical wise, I think, do you think the federal government should be saying what gets taught in local schools, or do you think that should be up to the parents and the local school district administrations to do that?
That should be a state and local issue. We should eliminate the federal Department of Education. It's duplicative and it serves no purpose. Education should be a local and state issue.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're running out of time. Is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't touched upon? I tried to get to as many issues as we could, so.
Well, thanks for the questions, Jamie. It's always good to join you every couple of years for this discussion. I would just say this. People know what's wrong with America. The people that are watching us, listening to us today, they know what's wrong with America, and it can be fixed with the will to do it. First of all, let's have a strong America. Let's have a strong foreign policy. Weakness leads to war, and that's what's happening around the world. The instability you see is as a result of the weakness, as exemplified by the disastrous pullout by the Biden-Harris administration of Afghanistan. Second of all, we need to spend within the taxpayers' means. It's time to get back to balancing a budget. I helped do that when I was in the legislature. we can do it the same, and we can do the same here in Washington, D.C. if we put a good series of budgets together. We need to be energy independent. We want to get control of inflation. Diesel fuel moves the world. When we have low energy costs, we have a thriving America. We got to get back to energy independence. And finally, we have to secure the border. The things that we're seeing, including right in our backyard with the fentanyl deaths, with people being killed by Venezuelan gang members here in Wisconsin, it has come home for all of America. Time to secure the border and have an immigration system that works for America.
All right, with that, I want to thank you, Congressman, for coming on the show again. And maybe we'll try to get you on midterm if you're successful again in November.
I'd love to do it, Jamie. And thank you for taking the time to do this.
All right. And I want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.